Welcome back to Young Tripp Reactions. The next video we're going to do is why would any rational man get married today in this time? Just one moment.
Disciplined man sign a contract. Why would any rational, disciplined man sign a contract where the other party can break it whenever they feel like and still legally take half of your life's work? That's not love. That's insanity. That's crazy. Because in the United States, 40-50% of all marriages end in divorce. So that's not rare. That's a coin flip. And here's the part that young men need to choke on. Nearly 70% of all divorces are initiated by women. Think about that.
And he is absolutely right about that. And this is a conversation that I was recently having with my people. That this is why you should pick good partners to turn into wives at the beginning. Because most of them is initiated by women. And some people were saying that, that's because of like the cheating and all that. Sometimes it's not even because of somebody cheating. Sometimes it's just because a woman just says, "Oh, I got bored. I'm tired. I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore." And obviously, let's not even get started on family court laws need to be updated regarding marriages and all that as well too. To not make it where the woman is the only person benefiting, where she gets the house, she gets to have the kids, she gets to keep everything, and now he got to pay child support and all these other things and alimony and all this other stuff. So this is what he's referring to as well too. That family court laws need to be updated, where the mother is not just guaranteed the child, because a lot of women think, because I gave birth, it's my child, it's not your child. No. It's both of your child, because the man had to provide the sperm just as much as you had to go through everything with it, and all that as well, too. But back to it.
Most men aren't walking away. They're being removed from the deal. And when that happens, the government doesn't ask any questions. It doesn't investigate effort. It doesn't audit behavior. It just says, cool, split it. Half the house, half the equity, half your retirement. Sometimes your future earnings. Sometimes limiting access to your own kids. All because you signed a piece of paper that assumed that everybody in the relationship would behave forever.
Facts.
That's crazy. That's insane. Marriage is the only contract on planet Earth where the person who breaks it can be rewarded more than the person who upheld it.
He's spitting right now. He's spitting nothing but facts right now.
Bob, you don't get a paycheck. Breach a business deal, you get sued. You walk away from an investment, you eat the loss. But marriage, you can leave and still send the man the bill. Now,
wild.
I already hear outrage forming in the minds of women.
Before we get into the outrage of the minds of women, let's make this make sense, right? I am an advocate for people that get married, especially if you decide to have children, because statistically, we know that children that are raised in a two-parent married household.
Well, it has to be, this is where me and Anton have a bit of a disagreement. I believe in a two-parent household with the biological parents. You don't necessarily need a contract on paper to have a successful household. But yes, a two-parent household with the biological parents is the best option. What Anton is getting ready to say, though, is a two-parent married household. I don't think you have to walk down the aisle and sign paperwork, because exactly what this guy right here is exactly what he's saying is why you should really consider if you really want to do that, or just have a successful dating relationship, because it's easier just to get out of that. It's easy just to say, I'll just let you keep this, and I'll take this, and I'll take this, and you take this, and you take this, and and we'll uh, go to court and figure out something for split time with the kids and all that type of stuff. Because when you start getting into the marriage with family court laws, when it's time to separate, uh, it is not kind to men, and it never has been. So um, that's my understanding of it. And it's not always somebody um, cheating what leads to somebody separating. People can separate. Uh, like I said before, just because you just don't want to be with the person anymore. We've seen so many videos that I have as well too, that you'll probably see before this video, where that me and Anton both reacted to, where a woman says, "Oh, I left my husband because I was bored," or he was a good guy, and so I wanted to go try the bad guy because I've been with him since I was in high school, or middle school, or elementary, or knew him all my life, and all this other stuff, and so I wanted to go try this. And what about those scenarios? See, people don't think about that. People just think, oh, well, he cheated. Oh, she gets everything, mostly everything, and he has to just eat it. What about when she starts emotionally cheating because she wants to try out the bad guy, and all that? No, it doesn't work that way, because then she goes and files for divorce because he's trying to keep his family. He's trying to keep the family together and all that. And she's like, nope, 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 nope. And then she still ends up with half of everything. And that's even what this guy here in this video is what he's saying. Back to it.
Have a greater chance of success. So that is a situation where you are bringing people into this world that didn't ask to be here. You have to put them in the best position possible. All right?
So I get what Anton is saying. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be married. I do agree that you should be in a two-parent household with the biological parents. And the biological parents could be dating, they could be engaged, they could be living however they want to live. It doesn't have to be necessarily a signed piece of paper. That's just at least my opinion on the situation. But drop a comment and let me know what you think. And we'll continue that topic there. I'll continue on with the video.
So let's start there. However, marriage has become a business and an institution, even when you look at family court laws, and it's becoming harder and harder for me to justify it for future generations. Why is that? Because we now have evidence. We now can source through and look at the stories and the conversations from different men, and we don't have to necessarily suffer through it yourself for you to realize that if you, at the very minimum, does not have a prenuptial agreement, and a prenuptial agreement exists for you and for them, it protects both of you guys, and it clearly outlines.
And that's the only way to legally get married now, is to have a prenuptial agreement. But it is very hard to get an American woman to want to sign a prenuptial agreement. You can go over to these other countries and get somebody to easily do it, but it is difficult to get a woman here in America to sign a prenuptial agreement.
What happens in the event that you guys decide to get a divorce? And I need y'all to understand this, because other cultures have this, practice it. It is not just for the guy that has a significant amount of resources. It clearly outlines what happens so that you don't get in any trouble. All right? Now that we got that out of the way, marriage has become an institution to ensure that judges have jobs, lawyers have jobs, billions of dollars every single year flows through the state, and it doesn't benefit either party because usually the woman suffers, even though she's taking him to the cleaners. It creates a bitter situation, and it's not necessarily beneficial for both parties. And it could take you thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and depending on how much money you have and where you filed it, maybe even millions of dollars that goes into the system, that goes into lawyers. And depending on how bitter the person is, usually the woman, because as he indicated, over 70% of the divorces are initiated from women. And although you can tweak that number a little bit because some people can justify it and say, well, you were already checked out or whatever, so on and so forth. Instead of people working through it, working on it, and working for it, they decide that they want to divest themselves even when the children are young. And then they use that as leverage or an opportunity to then screw the other person. And then it creates a bitter situation, which then you can make the argument and say, well, why would you get married in the first place? Now, I will say that there are some benefits, significant benefits, but it only matters if you're equally yoked. It only matters if both people are going to uphold it. And the problem with that is, statistically speaking, you have a greater than 50% chance of getting divorced. However, and even though those people can't get a divorce, there's a ton of men that are in sexless marriages. There's a ton of people that don't see eye to eye, and there's a ton of people that then have problems going forward. However, we are still pushing it. Why are we pushing it? Again, because I think that it's beneficial for the children, but also it's...
But like I said already, this is where me and Anton have a disagreement. You can have a two-parent household where two people are in love and dating and together and have a two-parent household without walking down the aisle or without going to court and signing paperwork.
An institution, right? It is an institution, and that is the problem, because marriage traditionally would have been great for families. We've had a stronger structure, better opportunities to build wealth together, ensuring that the children are taken care of. And now, unless you are spiritually connected and you're doing it also for religious reasons, unless you also looking at it from a business perspective, if you're only looking at it from a love lens, then I hate to say it, you might be in a little bit of trouble. And you have to be very, very careful. And when I say very, very, I mean very, very careful of the person that you decide to take vows with, because it is, like he said, the only contract that makes it difficult for you to be able to move a certain type of way, even if you're not the person that initiated it and you are upholding it, and you don't want to get divorced. You know what I'm saying? So we've seen it with celebrities. We've seen it every day with people telling their stories. And I would even go so far as to say it's a lot of women that don't want men to tell their stories because they don't want that a part of the narrative, and they do want to continue to get the contract. And a lot of women are in it just for the ring or to brag to their friends that they get married, and they don't even understand what marriage is about. And there are no wives because there are no virgins, and there are no people that actually understand what marriage is about nowadays. And grandmama is only 30.
If he stopped doing what he did in the beginning? What if he cheated? What if he emotionally checked out? Cool, but let's stop pretending this is a one-sided fairy tale. It takes two people to tango. Let me ask you a question. What did you do to make him stop wanting to
Save an average of 50% on a Purdue Global bachelor's degree with credit for your experience. You've put in the work.
When did sex turn into a weapon instead of connection? When did respect turn into constant nagging? When did you become entitled? When did he go from being your man to being behind the kids, the dogs, your phone, your stress, your crazy moods? When did you stop serving this relationship?
I'll go even further and say, when did you start taking advice from single women on TikTok and Instagram on whether or not you should get divorced? I even see women nowadays talking about they want to divorce their man because they don't think that he's taking it serious enough.
Yeah, I agree with what Anton just said there too. Taking advice from social media people, social media influencers who who've never probably even thought about getting married, enjoy just having different partners and not actually trying to be with the person that they should be aligning themselves with. So yeah, taking advice from these influencers and these Instagram models and people like that about divorcing their partner, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, and all that. It's crazy. Back to it.
About the ICE protests. I'm like, what? Y'all getting divorced over ICE protests? That's a new one.
Just think you're just going to kick back and collect all the benefits. When he quietly became the provider, the protector, the fixer, the emotional punching bag, the walking ATM, well, you brought nothing but expectations and complaints. And then you wonder why it failed.
He cooking.
No man wakes up one day and says, I think I'm going to blow up my family today.
He cooking.
They drift after being
He is cooking.
ignored. They disengage after being disrespected. They shut down after being treated like a utility instead of a man. And instead of self-reflection, the story's always the same.
ATM
I wasn't
machine.
happy. I deserved more. I outgrew him. Funny how
Not emotionally.
Oh, I outgrew him. That's the one right there.
Intelligent. He doesn't see me.
accountability evaporates, right?
He doesn't see me. Yep. That's how I got it.
When the system rewards an exit. And that's the real issue. The system doesn't care who stopped showing up. It doesn't care who withdrew the intimacy. It doesn't care who poisoned the household. It just redistributes assets and moves the on. That's not partnership. That's legal roulette. So
and you see that when you watch, I watch a lot of Judge Judy, Judge Joe Brown and stuff, and especially on Judge Judy, she'll say, well, we have courts for people who are married. We don't have courts for almost marrieds, right? But the thing is, even when people are married, again, all that happens is they split everything. So like if you have multiple cars, if you have like 4 cars, let's just make it even. He gets 2, she gets 2. She gets the house though, and he gets the bank account, or it's crazy. And in most cases, the cars is like all he gets because she needs the bank account for the kids because they got kids too. So then he only got one thing, and she got a house and the bank accounts. And he just got cars. Oh, crazy.
read your contract, understand the incentives, and stop confusing tradition with intelligence. Because if it's a bad deal on paper, it's a bad deal in real life. And men are finally waking the up and asking the only question that matters. Why in the would I ever sign that?
I don't think that he's saying anything crazy. I think that he's spot on. I think that a lot of guys are waking up. I think that guys need to be woke. And you can't just throw the incel or, oh, man, he bitter or anything like that at people, because there are some people that are aware that's not bitter. And they are just looking at it for what it is and saying, man, this is crazy. I don't know if this makes sense anymore. And, I don't think that women take that into consideration, because the thing that you're always supposed to do is look at it from the other person's lens. No? Make sure you guys tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. T-Chan, leave 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I always like to leave credit where credit is due, so I'll leave his content in the description, regardless of whether I agree or not. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.
You think you're fine after a car accident?
So again, like I said, I agree with dude. In that it's better for a man just to have a dating relationship and feel and be like you're married instead of actually being married, because marriage is becoming more and more like a scam now, and not a love situation, and the woman is already emotionally cheating and she already emotionally checked out, and the only last thing to do is to go ahead and file that paperwork to end the marriage, and that's it. Um, but tell me what you think. Drop a comment, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. 40% off. 40% off Chase Hanley. 20% off your first order. 40% off for life. Anton will have the link back to the original content creator in his description, and I'll have Anton's video and the link in my description. Peace.